not even trying that. Not even a little bit.
Oh, come on, man. Just put
right.
some smoothness in it.
All right, it's just us between you and afternoon break. So this is Japanese manufacturing, killer robots, and effective incident handling. I will warn you, it's a little bit light on the killer robots, but we're working on it. So quick introduction, who we are, what we're about, and what we're going to tell you.
Oh, I should look at that, huh?
Yeah, there's that one down there, too.
All right, I'm Kevin, also known as the Kev Dog, B-Fist on Twitter, incident response lead at Heroku, bass guitar player, developer, all-around fun guy.
Best friend.
Bestie.
Yeah.
Bestie.
I'm Scott Roberts. I am the SIRT lead at GitHub. I'm also a Forensics 578 instructor here with SANS, so come on out and do some CTI at some point. So what we're here to talk about is how to be more efficient with incident response. We love the bits and bytes stuff. We love doing all that kind of in the weeds stuff. But in a lot of cases, the biggest problems that we run into personally are more on the workflow and how do you manage the incident response process. And so we're going to use some engineering techniques to make that more effective. I had to put science up there because this Bill Nye GIF is amazing, right? Man, not enough appreciation. All right, you guys are a tough crowd.
It's late.
It is late.
It's late, they're tired.
Okay. So what we're going to talk about is a low-cost collaborative method for managing common incident response workflows. Going to be some flexibility, going to be a pretty wide variety of how we're going to approach it, but this should be something that if it speaks to you, you should be able to take back, use on next week on your next incident.
All right, so you got 99 problems when you're dealing with incidents. Whether you're trying to figure out how are you going to allow multiple responders to coordinate their activity, how are you going to establish comms, you have no money because you're broke. But the one that was really kind of sticking in my head one day was how do we move up the capability maturity model? So think back to when you were doing your CISSP prep. You have your okay, or when you went to business school or whatever, right?
Boo.
You get your,
Do you want to do a third one?
Okay, so you got your capability maturity model. Down here at the bottom, you've got, things are very ad hoc and unpredictable. An incident comes up and everybody on the team just does whatever they think is right to try to make it better, and when it's over, you kind of hope it's better, okay? But it's chaotic. What you want to do is we want to move from that up to managed. And at the managed perspective, you can still be a little bit chaotic. You can still be making things up as you go along, but now you have distinct assignment and tracking. I'm saying you in particular are responsible for accomplishing this task, and I'm going to see to it that I'm going to track your completion of that task, and I'm going to know what's done. And then from there, we try to move into defined, where we actually start to put together what is going to be our plan for this type of incident over and over again. So today we're going to be talking about these first three levels, moving from initial to managed to defined. If you want to get quantitatively managed, hit me up later for a Varus talk. I'll get into that. But this all reeks of project management. And so I was sitting there and I was starting to think of my incidents as if they were just really condensed projects. And so then I started looking for certain project management methodologies, and I came across what we were doing with our projects, and I said, could I take that and apply it to our incidents? And I tried it out a few times, and it really worked. And so Scott over here, he's bestie of mine and everything. So I'm talking to him one day. I'm like, man, Scott, I'm brilliant. I found a way to take our project management methodology and apply it to incident response. No one's ever done this before. And Scott's like, funny you should mention it. We started doing the exact same thing. And so I thought, well, if it's good enough for Scott, it's good enough for me. And so we started to refine it a bit more and came to this.
And so I wasn't nearly that brilliant. I had actually just gotten done reading a book called The Lean Startup. And if you haven't read it, even if you're not in a startup position, it's a really fantastic resource for just looking at how ideas go from just an idea to something that gets out the door. And reading through the Lean Startup, they end up taking a lot from Toyota manufacturing theory circa just after World War II. And one of the ideas they get into a lot is this idea of just-in-time. And just-in-time is a factory management theory of being able to create resources exactly at the time you need them in order to manufacture some end state. Well, being time constrained, being resource constrained, and having to just get something done, to me, reeked a lot of incident response. And so it turns out, in doing incident response, or in doing the just-in-time development, one of the things they end up using is this idea of Kanban. And if you haven't seen it, Kanban is a management platform originally aimed at manufacturing that's been translated to a lot of other cases like software development, project management, and now after this talk, you're all witnessing, hopefully, incident response.
Incident response, yeah.
And so at its core, Kanban's really simple. You have columns of either statuses or actions, and then you have what are called cards. And cards are, again, either actions or sometimes entities that you move through a process. And the idea is it's supposed to be really quick to look at a process like this and go, okay, based on what I can see up there, it seems like to-do, most of the things are in to-do, and I can look directly at what's done, and I know what's being done as it's working immediately. What this looks like in a software development perspective is you see, they have the idea of planning with stories, features to do, in progress, testing. And the idea is it's not about a specific set of columns or a specific set of cards. It's flexible. Here's a well-known Silicon Valley startup using Kanban. And ultimately, it's great for both really short-term tasks, like the manufacturing of cars that was originally aimed at, as well as longer-term tasks like managing months and months-long projects. And what we found that was interesting about it is both Kevin and I were using the same set of techniques, but we're using it in completely different ways. And we kind of came and assumed, as soon as we said Kanban, I think that we were going to be doing the same thing. And what we ended up finding out is we were taking very different approaches. And I liken this a lot to jazz. And jazz is incredibly free form as soon as you understand there's a structure to it. I was going to see how long you went. No, you good?
Keep going.
Okay.
You're fine.
So the point of this is, take a look at this methodology, see how you can adapt it to the workflows you have. It's not about copying the boards that we put up or the ways that we talk about doing it. It's a structure.
So what we've kind of been showing you so far is how this relates to auto manufacturing. How does this relate to incident response? And as Scott was mentioning, you can put entities in there or you can put tasks. I tend to go with tasks. So for instance, one of the columns that I might have in an incident is, here are tasks that need to be done for every incident no matter what. I'm always going to be setting up comms, I'm always going to be establishing a timeline, et cetera. And so that's kind of the stuff that you would put into your Kanban boards if you were not manufacturing cars, would be stuff like this.
So as soon as we start talking about something like this, tools are a part of it. It's more about the methodology. We're just going to tell you about the tools that we happen to use in our day-to-day use of this. Turns out, part of the other reason I got to start using this is GitHub, as a product, added the idea of doing projects, which are Kanban boards. We were already tracking a lot of our information in repositories, so it was a place that we kept interesting logs. It was a place that we kept descriptions of incidents. It was a place that we'd keep malware and things like that. And being able to add a Kanban board to it to start tracking some of the processes that were going along with it was super natural and easy for us, simply because we already had users there, we already could manage permissions, we already had it set up for us. As far as GitHub projects goes, there's cool ability to assign cards to individual people. So when tasks need to go to specific analysts, we can do that. Actually, every card is backed by a GitHub issue, so we could keep track of conversations and changes there. There's a super easy API to use, but it's a new feature for us. And so there's some things that a little bit more mature tool might have that we don't necessarily have, like templating. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here's a quick example of what one of these boards could look like. You'll see columns, individual cards. There's assignments to individual people. We can do some tagging and things like that. So from a workflow management perspective, there's a lot of the things that we need already there.
Another one, the one that we use at Heroku is typically going to be Trello. And in this case, Kanban is their main product, so it's going to be a little more slick than GitHub projects for now. It's very full-featured GUI, but again, you can do all the things like keeping all of the discussion about a particular task on that card. I really value that, especially when it's something like if we were looking at, for example, a leaked credential or something like that, and I want to see, and one of the tasks might be find out if this has been used since the time it was leaked or whatever, and then we can have all of the discussion related to that task in that card. Because to me, it's really valuable to be able to reconstruct the response, not just the incident, but also reconstructing the response. So I like being able to do that. It has great chat integration, so I can integrate it with Slack. One of the things that we do at Heroku is we'll create a distinct chat room for every incident that's going on, so that we don't find ourselves trying to talk about several things in the same room. And I can integrate that with Trello in such a way that as we're talking, if we're like, oh yeah, we're going to need to do that, I can, from the chat room, issue a chat command that'll create boards, create cards on the Kanban board for me. And as people update their cards, I'll see those updates come into the chat room. So it really helps with keeping everybody coordinated on what's been done, even if they're not necessarily staring at the board. And this is an example of what it looks like in Trello. As you can see, unlike GitHub, this has a blue background, so you can tell that it's a prettier GUI here, GUI, because we made it blue.
Because it's super blue.
Because they made it blue. I didn't make it blue. All right, so think back to when you were learning incident response from your SANS classes. We had these,
504?
Yeah, we had these phases of incident response. And what we're talking about here in particular is the preparation phase. Preparation phase, helping all of your other phases. But one of the things I like to actually do with my boards is create columns for those different phases of an incident. So I'll build template boards out for common types of incidents, and I'll start with my column of the basic things that I do in every incident, and then I'll add in, okay, what are my containment tasks? What are my eradication tasks? If there's things like for this particular kind of thing, do I need to invalidate a YubiKey, for instance, like if it's a stolen laptop or something like that, I make sure that that's always in there. And that's really what is moving us from having a managed response where yes, I'm keeping track of everything, to having a defined response now, where when I'm talking to an auditor and they say, hey, do you guys follow a common procedure for every type of this incident? I can say, yes, I can. Here's our playbook. The playbook is to copy this template incident, which that's another thing you can do in Trello that you can't right now on GitHub is the template. But I can copy this template, and then everyone who comes into my board immediately knows there are these certain tasks that are always going to be present in every one of these incidents. Another column that I really like to have is a lessons learned column. And it's kind of a dumping ground for as we go through the incident saying, oh man, we should talk about that at the retro. I can just quick throw a card into that column. But the meat and potatoes.
The easy, good place to start.
Yes, is these are my three go-to columns. The in progress column, the done column, and the canceled column. Now, earlier Scott said you don't have to do everything the way that we do, but this one I'm a real stickler for. You have to do it my way. And that is that if there's a card in the in progress column, there has to be a person assigned to it. And if there's a card in the canceled column, there has to be an explanation for why we decided this card does not need to be done. And hey, that happens a lot. I might say, we need to put up a card to investigate if this particular cred has been used anywhere, and then it's sitting in the to-do list, like we haven't gotten to it, and then somebody else goes, oh, you know what, none of those creds actually got leaked, now I can cancel that. Okay, that's a canceled task. But I need to explain that, because again, one of my big things is being able to reconstruct our response as well. So being able to say, oh, we canceled that because George figured out that those credentials didn't get exposed or something.
Yeah, and I think that gets to one of the important things about using this particular methodology is it's incredibly flexible, but that requires a certain amount of discipline on the part of the team that's using it. Mm-hmm. It's easy to just move stuff towards the end without any explanation if you don't take the time to do that.
Right. So here's an example of this was one of our incidents where I've got the things that are in progress, the things that are done, the things that are canceled, and you'll notice that I've got a pretty little face on each one of those. The other thing that I love about using these for instance incident response is when it comes time to do handover. You can look at a board and in 15 seconds, you know the lay of the land. You've got it. And I've not found anything that does a faster turnover than that. So if I'm the incident Commodore and it's getting to be the end of my day, I can say to our West Coast guys, hey, let's do turnover. They'll look at the board real quick. Then we hop on a call and say, all right, do you have any questions about what's going on? And almost always it's going to be, no, I don't, or maybe one or two questions. But typically, if the board has been run properly to my standards, there will be almost no questions. And then it'll be like, okay, I'm ready to be relieved, I'm ready to relieve you, we hand off, and now that other person is the incident commodore.
The ability for this particular technique to limit the amount of status updates I've had to do is amazing, because exactly, you take one look at the board and somebody can figure out what are the tasks that have already been accomplished, what are the tasks that are waiting to be done, and who should I talk to about any individual task.
Quick question. How many people have a manager that hits you up for an update every 10 minutes when you're trying to do something? Okay. Yes. Okay.
We can't actually see any of you. It is really bright up here.
I think I saw one person raise their hand. But anyways, you point them to the board. And from that point on, once they learn to trust you that you're keeping the board up to date, they will stop with that. But again, you've got to be doing it to my exacting standards where those cards have to be accurate, but once you've trained your managers that the board is accurate, they will stop bothering you every 10 minutes for an update.
It's absolutely the case.
So here's an example, you're just trying to fill things out a little bit more, of a lost stolen laptop. So here I might have this as a template, which I can do with Trello. So I've again got my tasks that need to be done for every incident, then I've got containment tasks, I've got my lesson learned column, the in progress, the done column. And if we get a stolen laptop reported to us, our playbook says step number 1 is go to the lost stolen laptop template board, say copy board, and now run the board. And that's really, really easy to understand, really easy to explain. And when you're talking to an auditor about your process and they want to say, well, do you follow this for every lost laptop? I can say, yes, I do. Got this great board. I can show you all of our boards. It's great.
And I can tell right now you have to get to work, because you apparently haven't done much for this one yet.
This is the template, man. It's the template.
So let's talk about a couple other example workflows of things you can do with this same type of format. So a couple of weeks ago, the handbrake compromise that led to the OSX Proton rat being sent around. We had a big part of our fleet that we were able to just automatically triage and go, nope, no infections. We had a small part of our fleet we couldn't do that with. And so we ended up having to go into a system triage workflow using something like this. We had to request from users that they run a tool, they give us a live response, we analyze the live response, could decide whether a system needed to be remediated or not, and then put it back into production. This is a super fast way to keep everybody on the same page for that, which was pretty chaotic, managing 600 laptops in the end. Malicious or compromised resources. Being able to track, stolen credentials and go, have they been looked at? Has the password been reset? Be able to get a quick look at where you are in that process and make sure that you're following it through the whole way. Indicator development, my Intel people, I like using this for intelligence as well, because taking a new IP, running it, putting it into a backlog of IPs to be looked at eventually, enriching it, and then moving it through the different courses of action, this provides a really consistent process as you're going through that, as well as even eventually moving it out of production. You're able to take one look and see all the different pieces of indicators you have available throughout your environment. On the other side, from the non-technical part of Intel, you can use this for intelligence product management. Say you're putting out weekly products, you're putting out quarterly products. Being able to move them through this process with teams that are not even necessarily related to incident response, whether it's your writing team, your editing team, the stakeholders, it makes it really easy to keep track of where in a process all your documents can be at. And ultimately, any time you come to these sorts of processes where they become very rote for an organization, they become ripe for automation. And one of the things I'll say to look for in any Kanban solution, if you decide to take a try with this, is look for the ability to automate. Trello and GitHub both do. There's a wide variety of internal, open source Kanban boards. Automation, though, should always be the key, because after a couple times running through any of these processes, the places to automate start to become really, really clear. And so being able to do that leads to, like we were saying, working with auditors and being able to point to, do we do everything the same way every time? Absolutely, because we're not even managing it, the board is managing it for us. The other thing about that is it reduces admin overhead. Who wants to be in the middle of an incident worrying about whether all your documentation is in exactly the right order yet? I know I've been on plenty of incident responses where we said, hey, we're totally going to figure that out after the fact, and then I have to go look at a paragraph of my own writing going, what was I saying at 2 a.m. hopped up on Red Bull when I wrote that? Being able to automate some of this stuff and move it that way is incredibly powerful. So if you want to try it, I put together a little bit of a workflow for doing this on my GitHub page. So you can go to incident template. It's a work in progress. It's not done. I would love it if people want to jump in and help, and I'm going to keep trying to move it forward as well based on some of the stuff that we're doing at GitHub. And I'm going to give you one more bonus piece. And one of the other things I liked a lot when I started reading about this Toyota way is one of the techniques they always used is what they called the 5 whys. And it's a root cause analysis technique of constantly asking why to get to the original issue. It's super simple and super powerful. I feel like a lot of organizations really struggle with doing retrospectives and trying to get to root cause. I think this is a really powerful technique that's totally worth looking into.
All right, so I don't know, this is our conclusion slide. What do we conclude?
What do we conclude? Well, I think it's a repeatable and flexible process.
Yes.
I think that it helps make communication consistent both between team members and leadership.
Yes, yes.
And I think that it's incredibly powerful, and just a little bit of scripting with some Python or something like that, or even built into the tool itself, can make it extra powerful.
Yes, and you don't have to do it Scott's way, but you do have to do it my way.
Also, yes.
Yes.